You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Killer Kev, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. Let's not sugarcoat things here. He's not off on assignment tonight. He's way too wasted from the MLK holiday weekend.
Oh, well, maybe, but it might not be bad being wasted this week.
Yeah, considering some things, yeah, wasted might be looking a little good.
Yep. Well, Kev, we've got an awesome show for you tonight. We appreciate the listeners tuning in here on the Angry Marks Podcast Network. You can go to AngryMarks.com /podcast, get all your podcast needs. The way I listen to the shows is I've got an iPhone, so I hit the podcast app on my iPhone, and I look up Angry Marks, all one word, Angry Marks. I hit that subscribe button. I get awesome podcasts delivered to me almost every day. I know that our friends with other devices, they listen to through the Podomatic app. Same thing, Angry Marks, all one word. Hit that subscribe button. If you think about it, leave us a review, a 5-star rating. Let us know what you want to hear about. Kev, are you ready for the 3 count?
Let's do it!
Well, count 1. The other day, WWE Hall of Famer Jimmy Snuka passed away. He has been long fighting stomach cancer. His trial for murder was dropped because they didn't think that he'd be able to live to see trial. They 2 weeks ago they said that he had 6 months to live, and that's when they dropped the charges. And he did pass away 2 weeks later. What are your thoughts on Jimmy Snuka? And you can be no holds barred on that.
You know, I mean, human beings are complicated, and how we feel about them's complicated. And, you know, here's a great example. In many ways, you want to celebrate the life and the work of Jimmy Superfly Snuka because he was a great wrestler. He was truly a great wrestler. You know, I mean, there's a lot of wrestlers that you could say are good or really good. He was one of the greats, you know, not just for WWF, but he worked his ass off on the independents for years, both before and after WWE. And so many independents used him as a resource. You know, so it was in a way it was warming to see so many wrestling promoters and longtime wrestlers and people in the business, you know, give their respects. But at the same time, you know, we're clearly dealing with a flawed individual. My own opinion, I definitely do think that he was guilty, you know, if not for murder, at least he had some responsibility in the death of his girlfriend, and that's something that should have been addressed a long time ago, and it's really sad that we didn't get to address that.
Yeah, it happened in '83, I believe. Lots of shady stuff happened with it. So I was sad that he did not receive the justice. He did not receive the trial that he deserved. And I will leave it at that. Count 2. Kurt Angle has been announced as the first inductee into the 2017 WWE Hall of Fame. I'm not going to debate the legitimacy of the WWE Hall of Fame, but he is back in the WWE fold. I think a lot of fans are happy about that. I'm sure that his bookings price will go up after that. He has said that he wants to have at least one more match in the WWE, and his opponent that he would like would be AJ Styles. Killer Kev, do you think that that match will happen, and if not, why?
You know what? In a way, I want that match to happen. And I say this as an individual who says that Kurt Angle needed to hang it up probably about 5 years ago. But, you know, that said, you know, he's not been, you know, in a lot of crazy matches that has further degraded his life. I don't think his mental abilities have been degraded in any way. So I'd actually like to see that match. I just can't see Vince McMahon doing it.
I could see him having one more match. But I don't think that they'd put him up against AJ Styles. Although he would have a heck of a match against him, I could see them doing something with Chris Jericho or something like that. But I don't think that it would be AJ Styles. But if it does happen, I will definitely be tuning in.
I mean, Chris Jericho would be okay, I guess. But really, I think what puts asses in seats in that is with the Jericho, or not Jericho, with Angle versus AJ Styles is the history they had in TNA. And wrestling fans are not ignorant of that.
Yeah.
I think that feud has a lot more meaning than with Jericho or even, God forbid, Sting. Cause I've heard it floated that Angle should wrestle Sting, and I'm like, no, Sting should never, ever step back into a ring again. And I love the man. Never.
Well, I think that they will have a wasted opportunity if they don't connect Kurt Angle to American Alpha in some form or fashion, whether he be their advisor or they do a trios match together, something along those lines. They need to connect, do a passing of the torch from Kurt Angle to the American Alpha guys.
Oh, that would be good. And then here's the best blow-off. You bring back in Haas and Benjamin.
Well, that'd be great.
Yeah, a one-off match. I'm hesitant to say WrestleMania because I think WrestleMania really should be reserved for the guys that are current and not the old guys. Put it on the pay-per-view after WrestleMania. That would be awesome. That would buy.
Yeah, definitely. All right, count three. The WWE just wrapped up their UK tournament and crowned a UK champion. Over the weekend, they also had Finn Balor do a segment for a British independent wrestling organization. And also, I have heard that they might be showing Insane Championship Wrestling out of the United Kingdom on the WWE Network soon. What is going on with the push of the UK product in WWE?
Well, I don't have any inside information on that, and I haven't read any of the dirt sheets. But my own hope is that this is the start of WWE developing a separate but equal brand identity in the UK. I mean, great. Sure, we've got WWE Raw and SmackDown and NXT, but if fans in the UK want to watch any of that, they have to get, to borrow a phrase from Abby Arthur from Thursday Night A&P, they have to get up at stupid o'clock in the morning to watch it. And it's bad enough when it's a 3-hour Raw and a 2-hour SmackDown. It's particularly grueling when it's a, 4 or 5 hour pay-per-view that they have to do that. And UK fans are definitely loyal. They're definitely fierce. I think it's about time they've got their own specific WWE branded product with wrestlers that are more local to them, that are more accessible to them, that they can go out to a house show and see them other than, a big show at O2 Arena or wherever once or twice a year.
Yeah, I agree. Last week we had Raven on the program, and as I told our listeners, I would be going to see his comedy act. You wanted me to give you a quick rundown of his comedy act before we introduce our guest?
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, I had a really great time. I hung out with our buddy, the Prophet Rick Craig, and some local Indianapolis legends in the professional wrestling business. I hung out with Jimmy James, who is a great announcer for pro wrestling and for boxing. Hung out with Diamond Dan Garza, who we definitely need to have on as a guest on the show. He's run the Diamond Dan hotline for 20 plus years. He's been a promoter, wrestler, manager, announcer, great guy, wealth of information, super funny. and also Scott Romer, who has been a manager under the name of Saul Creechman, and he's also an acclaimed photographer. He's had his photos published in just about any pro wrestling or pro boxing magazine that you can think of, including a bunch in Japan too. And he was also highly connected to Dick the Bruiser here in Indianapolis. He was married to his daughter for a while.
That's where I remember that name from.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so hung out with those guys. We had a great time. There were about 27 opening acts. It was like any independent wrestling show that you go to where everybody's got to get their shit in. So it was kind of a long night. But once Raven got up there, he had the flu. His flight was late. He wasn't used to the cold. But he stood up there reading off of a piece of paper with a bunch of one-liners. So if anybody's a fan of Jerry the King Lawler's humor, they would love Raven's humor. Very reminiscent, a little more adult-themed than some of Lawler's stuff. But then the Q&A session was amazing. He just took question after question after question, was up there for about an hour with Q&A, and then afterwards he sat around, sold some T-shirts, sold some photos, took photos with everybody, was there until everybody left. I was really worried that he was going to get his stuff in and get out of there, not have any interaction, but he was super interactive with everybody. I asked about 3 or 4 questions during the Q&A session. My favorite was the first one. I said, Raven, who is your favorite member of the flock, and why is it Reese? And he got a chuckle out of that. And he and I are both heavily tattooed, so I asked him what his first tattoo was. He starts pulling down his pants. It's a tattoo of Arnold Schwarzenegger's body with a flamingo head for Scotty Flamingo. So I thought that was super cool. That's
bizarre. This is why you should not get drunk and then think it's a great idea to get a tattoo. Absolutely. Did you happen to ask him if he has Signed Guys Cut yet?
No, I did not. I did not, but I made sure to bring exact change. So. All right, well, why don't we go ahead and give our guest a call, Killer Kev?
Here we go.
Hello.
I am talking with 2-time Mr. Indiana Bodybuilding, 3-time Arnold Classic participant, the former NWA Supreme Heavyweight Champion, former NWA Mid-American Heavyweight Champion, former NWA Mid-America Tag Team Champion, former WCWO Tag Team Champion, and the current and 2-time NWA Supreme United States Champion, big-time Josh Lewis. Josh, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you, sir?
Oh, doing fantastic. Really appreciate you coming on. I know we're going to talk about some of your influences here in just a little while, but let's kind of start at the beginning. Now, I've read that you originally started in pro wrestling and then kind of did a detour. What happened with that?
Well, I started back at HWA and went to Les Thatcher School, and I was just a young man, and I wanted to give bodybuilding a chance because I'd always loved the physiques and the look of the guys with the muscles, and I kind of had met a bodybuilder during that time when I was doing my wrestling training, and he told me, he kind of held my hand and helped me along with my first competition, and I did my first competition and I won it, and I was addicted. So I just went that direction, but I had always stayed such a huge fan of professional wrestling, and I just absolutely, loved wrestling as a kid. I can remember, watching the TBS at 6:05 every Saturday night, and just every time, like, all the wrestlers like Lex Luger and Sting would be on, those guys with those physiques, I was just drawn to it. And I knew, like, as a young man, that influenced me so much. I was like, I want to look like those guys.
So in the early 2000s at Heartland Wrestling, who were some of the guys that you were training with at that time?
Let's see, Drew Skills. He was back there in those days. And Cody Hawk. Just lots of big names came through there. Lots of big WWE talents. Like I can remember meeting Chris Benoit back then, Hugh Morris, Raven. Just so many guys you can't even name them all. It was just a great place to be, and I got lots of I learned all my basic fundamentals there. I had a great time, and it was a great place to learn. And Les Thatcher's a real good guy. So
awesome. So you said your first bodybuilding competition you won. How could you turn away from that at that point?
Yeah, I was addicted at that point, hook, line, and sinker. When you put so much time and work and prep into one event for one day, and then it turns out you win the whole thing. It's like, wow, you want to do it again. And, especially I believe I was 26 years old at that time. And, I just felt like I wanted to take my body as far as I could, you know what I mean? And so I just went that direction, and I was still, watching wrestling and everything, and I just love bodybuilding and wrestling. I'm just a big meathead,
So, do you own any Zubaz pants?
Pardon me?
Do you own any Zubaz pants?
No, but I rock a fanny pack.
Okay, that's close. That's close. Yeah. I got my oldest son a pair of Zubaz for Christmas, and my wife will not let him wear them to school, or else he'd wear them every day.
That's awesome.
So tell us about competing in the Arnold Classics. You were in 2 or 3 of them, correct?
Yeah, that was a wonderful experience, and I remember the first year I did it was 2009, and just backstage pumping up, and you're actually in the same place where Arnold competed and won one of his mini Olympia victories back in the Columbus, Ohio, at the convention center they have down there, and the time I did it, Arnold was still the governor, and so I didn't ever get to see him or anything, but you could see the river of people following him around. It was so cool how he came into the weight room, and he's just like checking out the bodybuilders, and it was just a really cool experience to be on that same stage, and it's a big deal in the bodybuilding world.
So you'd mentioned Luger and Sting earlier, but as far as the bodybuilding world, who were some of the guys that you looked up to?
Well, I was a big Jay Cutler fan, for sure. I always liked Kevin Lebroni, those guys back in the late 90s. Ronnie Coleman was just awesome, just such a great physique. And I tried to, just push my physique as hard as I could, and when I got to the point where I was pretty much ready to retire from bodybuilding, I just felt really good about, I took my body as far as I could, and I made it to the Arnold stage, and I felt pretty happy about that. I felt like I gave it my all, and I got some great pictures of how my physique was back in those days, and I just felt like I accomplished a lot in that sport.
You are talking like back in those days, like you're a big slob right now. You are a big, huge man with tons of muscles. It's intimidating to be around you.
Yeah, but I'm a lot smaller than I was back in my bodybuilding days, But
so what was your transition then from you started in the world of professional wrestling, went to bodybuilding, had huge success there, and then about 2015 you went back to professional wrestling. What was that transition like?
Well, I had actually met Rob Conway at the 2012 NPC Indianapolis. We were both competing, And I'm such a wrestling fan, and Mark, I'm like just marking out to myself, like saying, that's Rob Conway, to all the other guys around there, like, and my another friend, fellow bodybuilding competitor was like, knew who he was also. So we were just like kind of marking out there. And I just went up and introduced myself to him. And, I didn't want to bother him because when you're doing a bodybuilding competition, there's a whole lot of prep that goes into that. And I just thought it was so cool that he's just such an athlete to be the WWE World Tag Team Champion. And he's also, competing in NPC events. Thought what kind of an athlete he really is to be able to do that kind of a thing. So
was this around the time that he held the NWA World Heavyweight Championship?
Yes, this was like right around that time. And I actually saw him the next year at another event I did in the Kentucky Derby, and he was the NWA champion at that time. And he was in a suit and tie, and came out to hand out some awards and stuff. And I just was so impressed with that. And, I ended up sending him a Facebook message and just striking up a friendship with him. And I told him, I'd previously trained and was interested in getting back into the ring and, getting back in shape and in ring shape and wanting to, pursue wrestling again. And he was a big supporter for me, and he's become a real good friend, and he's been a blessing and a help, and he's just a great person. I couldn't say enough good things about Rob Conway. Anybody that knows him knows what a great person he is.
Well, and I think the first time that I ever introduced you guys in the ring, you were WCWO Tag Team Champions together. So have you guys tagged a lot before that or since then?
Not too much on the. We've been on the opposite sides of the fence since then. But I did, like you said, my first title I ever won was WCW Tag Team Champions with Rob, and that was a pretty cool experience. To have somebody of that caliber to be your first championship. You know what I mean? So it was a really cool thing. But I've been fortunate to have several matches with Rob, and I've learned a lot from him. He's a real good wrestler, and it's just amazing to me that he's not with the WWE right now, because they're sort of missing the boat upon him, because he's quite a talent.
Oh, and he's in phenomenal shape. He can work the crowd, but they don't really, I don't know, WWE doesn't really work the crowd anymore. They work the cameras, which is fine. I know that he knows how to do that, but I'm saying as a bonus, he can work the crowd really well. It might be one of those things where since the brand split, they've got more opportunities. They brought in guys like the Headbangers. They brought in Rhino, So maybe there will be the Spirit Squad. Maybe there will be a chance for Rob to be back on that national stage. Same thing with Kevin Thorne. There's always an opportunity for those guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us about you are kind of a flag bearer for the National Wrestling Alliance. You compete primarily at NWA Supreme, where you're the current U.S. champion. You held the United States champion and the heavyweight championship at the same time. You're also a former tag team champion there. You also, I know you compete NWA Mid-South, Circle City Wrestling. You're kind of all over the board for the NWA right now. Yeah,
that's right. I'm very fortunate that I've been doing very well so far. So I'm really, really fortunate about that. Really thankful.
Well, yeah,
it seems to be going really, really well. So
that's awesome.
And for me, I was such a fan of the NWA in the Crockett days growing up. I was more of a NWA guy than a WWF guy at the time. I watched both religiously, but I was always preferred the NWA stuff.
Let me guess. Like, you watched on TBS, of course, but also Channel 4 on Sunday mornings.
Oh yeah, Worldwide Wrestling. Absolutely.
Well, I know that you're a huge Lex Luger fan, and you sent me some cool photos of you holding some of his old belts with renowned belt maker Dave Milliken. Can you tell us a little about that?
Oh yeah, I got the pleasure to meet Dave. He made a couple belts for me, and he's just a great guy. I went out to his house, and he just invited me and my girlfriend in, and just made us feel very comfortable at home, and showed me like anything I wanted to see. He had like one of the original NWA Mid-America title belts from Dutch Mantel that he actually had, and it was really neat because I've held that, the current version of that belt. So I just took pictures. It was a big mark, and it felt like I was in a museum or a professional wrestling museum. Like he had, crowns from Jerry the King Lawler. He's a great big Lawler fan, being a Tennessee guy. So just great people. I couldn't say enough good things about Dave Milliken either. He's a real good guy.
Well, you compete all over the Midwest and Tennessee and West Virginia. Has there ever been a show that you're on that you felt embarrassed by yourself in the locker room for marking out too much?
What's that now?
Well, have you ever been in a locker room and been embarrassed for yourself for marking out around some of the talent?
Oh, not really. One thing at the Circle City show that I have a memory of, I'll share with you, is when China was there, and everybody, she came up to me and she had already knew my name, and I was kind of taken back by that because she goes, "Hi, Josh," and I was kind of taken back by that, but I figured maybe because I'm a physique guy and have a muscular body, she probably, somebody told her who I was or something. But I was like kind of blown away that she knew my name. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I got to take pictures with her. And of course, Road Warrior Animal meeting him was really awesome. But I try not to, bother those guys, when they're doing their thing. Just kind of take a picture and introduce myself. And, you're kind of worried about your match and making sure that goes well, just so I can perform the best I can. But
yeah, definitely. So in your travels, who are some of your favorite opponents to wrestle, other than Rob Conway, because we know about your relationship?
Yeah, sure. Greg Anthony's a great pro wrestler and a great worker, and I seem to have a great chemistry with him. I've been very fortunate to have a couple NWA national heavyweight title matches against him. I believe I've had about 3 of them now, and against Greg, and we have a real good chemistry. He's a real good guy, and Matt Riviera is another guy I've been able to have a match with, a tag team match, and he's another guy that I think is a great worker. Let's see here. Eric Draven here in NWA Supremes, another great wrestler. Another guy that's been doing this 20 plus years, and I've been able to pick their brains and just learn a lot and take a little bit of, what they do and kind of make my own.
Well, I had the great pleasure of coming down to NWA Supreme and help out with a benefit to help the local police department there, and that was a great event. That's one of the things that I love about professional wrestling is that, you guys earn every dollar that you make and put on a great show, but then you also give back to the community.
Right. Yeah. That was a great show. We raised a lot of money. The local police department here in Madison, Indiana, had a canine that passed away, and we were helping raise money for them to purchase a new dog and the training and everything that goes along with that.
Yeah, that was a great event. Thank you so much for inviting me down for that. So one of your finishing maneuvers is the human torture rack. You and I have talked. You are a huge Lex Luger fan. Tell us a little about how you connect to him so much.
Well, he was just like my guy. When you were a kid watching wrestling, I can remember I would pop in that VHS tape and record him every time he was on TV. And he would just look different than everybody else to me. Like he was big and he was lean. And, when you're a young man, you're very impressionable. So you're just I was just drawn to him. And I was just a big fan I can even tell you a story of me getting his autograph when I was a kid.
Oh, go for it.
This was about 1991. It was during that time when him and Nikita were feuding because he didn't have the U.S. title with him because Nikita had smashed it, and he didn't have the actual physical belt. But my dad and grandfather took me to a show, and it wasn't a televised show, and they had like, you know, kind of like a curtain over half of the show, and it was separated. It was downtown Indianapolis at the convention center. And I was sitting there, with my dad and my grandpa, and I looked back in the stands, and I saw Lex Luger sitting up way up high in the bleachers. So what I did, being a young, fearless guy, I went up as high as I could, then I belly crawled all the way behind him and crawled down and came up right behind him and tapped him on the shoulder. And I had a pin, and I had my wrestling wrap-up with Elegante on the cover of it. I can remember this like it was yesterday. And he just looked over his shoulder, and he looked at me. Then he looked back at the security guy, and the security guy just started coming, And then he didn't say a word to me. But he took the magazine and flipped it open to his picture, signed his name, and gave it back to me. And then the security guys took me to my parents. So it was really cool. It was really, really cool thing. It was like, I still have the autograph today, so it's pretty cool.
Now, were you at the WWE show when Andre beat Hogan for the belt?
I was, and I can remember people crying like after the match. I can, because Hogan had such a long run with that title. Like, I can remember fans being so upset over that. That was on a Friday night. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, I was there too, so you probably saw me crying.
Yeah, it was such a big deal back then too, because title runs back then were much longer than they are now, in the WWE. And I mean, I think Hogan had that thing for 4 years, and I don't think anybody saw that coming that night.
Well, and Andre winning his only world championship and relinquished it 30 seconds later. That was definitely a memorable night.
Right, that was awesome.
This is the Wrestling Nerdcast. We are talking with big-time Josh Lewis. Josh, can you throw out your social media accounts so that way our listeners can follow you and see what's going on with your career?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook at just Josh Lewis, and then on Twitter it's NWA Josh Lewis.
Excellent. Josh, do you prefer to work big man style, like two big guys going at it? Since you are what are you, 6'3", 6'4"?
Well, I'm 6'2".
You're 6'2", and what, 285, 300? What are you weighing at?
I'm about 267 pounds right now.
Oh, but it's all muscle. So
yeah,
you're lean. Do you prefer working against other guys, or do you prefer being the giant in the match, taking on smaller guys?
Yeah, the smaller guys, I like to press slam, and that's a whole lot of fun. But it really doesn't matter. I want to go out there and just have a real good match, and just give the fans their money's worth.
Yeah, that's the name of the game. Put on an entertaining product for the fans. So what's the next step in the evolution of big time Josh Lewis?
Well, I'm just gonna keep getting better and better, and keep spending my time training and working on this body, and just see if I can climb that ladder in the NWA, and hopefully maybe the national title, the North American title, might be in my future one day. Fingers crossed.
I think you should. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, in August coming up, we have our NWA Supreme 20th anniversary show coming up, and I'm going to have a world title match against Tim Storm, so I'm looking forward to that.
Whoa, that's awesome. That's coming up in August?
Yeah, it's coming up in August, so still a ways away, but, we got it on the calendar.
No, that is fantastic. I was just going to say, I want to set up a fight between you and the NWA Continental Champion Bad Blood. He's been down to Supreme before, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has.
I think you should take that Continental Championship away from him, and then that would give us an excuse to get our buddy Will Huckabee down to NWA Supreme. He's a former Continental Champion, so.
That sounds good to me.
All right, so you've got something. You've got a big world title match for the NWA World Title in August. What do you got coming up more current than that?
Well, later this month, on January 27th, we got our Anchor House show in Seymour, Indiana, with NWA Supreme. So that's a big event we got coming up. That's what's next on the calendar. And you can see, I'll be at the NWA Supreme every Saturday night here in Madison, Indiana.
Awesome. And throw out those social media plugs again for our listeners.
On Twitter, it's NWA Josh Lewis, and on Facebook, it's Josh Lewis, Big Time Josh Lewis.
Awesome. All right, before we let you go, Josh, what else do you have to say to your fans out there?
I was just really glad for all the support and just come out to see the shows and support indie wrestling. We sure need the fans for us to grow. Well,
I think independent wrestling is definitely on an uptick too. We've got great organizations like NWA Supreme that give credibility and give a good product. It's not a fly-by-night thing. And so with guys like Cody Rhodes and Ryback leaving that national stage to want to go to independent wrestling, it just shows that independent wrestling is where it's at right now.
Yeah. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Awesome. Oh, that just gave me another idea. We need to get you against Ryback sometime soon. I'll see if I can make that happen.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Big Time Josh Lewis, for coming on the show tonight. And next time that we get Lex Luger on here, we'll definitely have you as a guest co-host.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be so awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
You have a great evening.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
All right, this is the Wrestling Nerdcast on the Angry Marks Podcast Network. Just had a great talk with multiple title holder in pro wrestling and Arnold Classic competitor, Big Time Josh Lewis. Did you learn a little bit about Josh Lewis there, Killer?
I did. It was a good interview.
Oh, well, thank you. He trains down in the Indiana side of Louisville. Moved down there to train with Rob Conway, and really good guy. And he's I think that he can make some waves in the pro wrestling business. Really good guy, really respectful, and super cool guy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is the big question for the evening. Are you ready for it, Killer Kev?
Sock it to me.
Okay. Next week we're going to be doing some Royal Rumble predictions when we have the incredible Will Huckabee back with us. But the big question tonight is, since they've announced that Kurt Angle will be the headliner for the WWE Hall of Fame this year, who do you think is what's your wildest pick that you actually think will happen for this year for the WWE Hall of Fame?
Wildest pick.
That might actually happen. So you can't just throw out, gobbledygook or something like that. It's got to be somebody that you can actually see it happening to.
I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, honestly.
Okay, all right.
I mean, the only one I could possibly think of is China, but at the same time, I don't think that's a reality this year either, especially since I heard Beth Phoenix is going in.
Oh, I hadn't heard that. Beth Phoenix, really?
That's what I heard.
Okay, all right, that's interesting. They normally try to do a tie-in for the market that they're going to be in. So they're going to be in Orlando this year. So I'm thinking, Florida wrestling. I'm going to say the Malenko family, just because they're based out of Tampa. the great Boris Malenko was a great wrestler and trainer, and then Dean Malenko is currently still in the WWE system. He's a producer there. I think that that either one or both of them. I don't think that Joe Malenko will get recognized just because he's not a big enough name, especially in WWE. But that's my dark horse for the WWE Hall of Fame this year.
Didn't Joe have a brief run in WWF?
Yeah, but
not long enough for anybody to remember, but.
Right, that's like saying that the Wyndham should go in and it's Kendall Wyndham is the first one that you think of. That's not going to happen.
Kendall was awesome, though.
But he's not a big enough name. That's my point.
Well, on his own, no. But if you're going to put the whole family in.
But okay, Blackjack Wyndham I think is already in, and I know that Barry Windham was inducted as part of the Four Horsemen. So that was just an example. I'm not saying that the Malenko family will go in, but I wouldn't be surprised if either the great Boris Malenko or Dean Malenko went in.
Is Eddie Graham in?
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to ask Sign Guy about that. He's a big Graham fan. Let me do a little bit of research real quick on that. Why don't you throw out another thing while I'm checking out Eddie Graham?
Kevin Sullivan.
Ooh, that would be great.
I think he was more Tampa than Orlando, but.
Yeah, but I'm thinking any Florida based. I do not see that Eddie Graham has been inducted. I could be wrong, but I do not see anything about that. So,
yeah, so I think Eddie Graham would be a good pick, not just as a wrestler, but also as a promoter.
Yeah. I've heard rumors, and I hope that they're true, that the natural disasters, Fred Ottman, earthquake, John Tenta, who was Earthquake, and our buddy Fred Ottman, who was Typhoon. I've heard rumors that they'll be inducted as a tag team, which I think would be fantastic. John Tenta did so much in professional wrestling, so many characters that he got over, and same thing with Big Fred, Uncle Fred. He did a great job, so I would be happy.
Now you got to have a secondary big name. Not as big as a big name as Kurt Angle, but you got to have somebody who can kind of share that spotlight a little.
And it's got to be somebody living.
Yeah, definitely has to be somebody living. I don't know. Who do you got, Zane?
Well, let me have a second here to think. I've heard DDP. I've heard rumors of DDP, and I wouldn't be opposed to that. I don't know if he's a big enough name though. Who knows in these years that they're mending fences, but we talked a lot about Lex Luger tonight on this show. I wouldn't be shocked if it was Lex Luger. I would also like to see somebody like Raven or Tommy Dreamer be put in there. Because, there's not a Florida base to it. But
we could do an ECW guy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of one of the early ECW guys that would fit in pretty good.
Well,
what about
Jimmy
T-Bolt?
Snuka's already in.
T-Bolt Patterson.
Oh, okay, sure. How about let's just put Todd Gordon in?
You think that would go over?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Well, wait a minute. In all seriousness, Shane Douglas.
Oh, I don't know. How about Dirt Bike Kid or 911?
What the hell happened to 911?
I'm not sure. Actually, while we're talking about it, I wouldn't be shocked if it were the Dudley Boys, since they just did their run.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, Dudleys. There you go, right there, the Dudleys.
Yeah, that would be a good pick.
Because if they got Kurt Angle from TNA this year, then they're not going to do the Hardys.
Well, we'll save this for Royal Rumble predictions, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Hardys showed up at the Royal Rumble. So
well, allegedly they're under contract with TNA until the middle of February.
yeah, but TNA their whole gimmick right now is that they're teleporting to different promotions, and looking for more. They're the best tag team in the universe. So TNA would definitely loan them out for that exposure, and who knows? Somebody at WWE might just get a kick out of seeing Broken Matt and Brother Nero show up at the Rumble. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I want to be shocked.
Oh, I would completely mark out for that.
Yeah. So
if they came back came back at their current gimmick, or if they did an old throwback Hardy Boys gimmick.
Yeah, they could go into the Lake of Reincarnation and come out in their old gimmick. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it might be fun for a minute.
Yeah. All right, Killer Kev, what else is going on in the world of AngryMarks.com?
Well, we don't have a whole lot going on this week. We're keeping it kind of low key, so we're sticking to our usual schedule of Monday night Raw reaction with Angry Tensai and Big Vic. Tuesday nights is us, of course. Wednesday nights is Glove Up or Shut Up. Thursday night is Thursday Night AMP with Stevie J and Abby Arthur and The Great Sudoku. And we follow that up with TNA Impact Implosion with Seth Draken and Mike Poulin. And we cap off our week with the best show ever. And why am I blanking on that all of a sudden? I'm blanking on it because for some reason my mind for the last 30 seconds has wanted to call it the Drunk Cast. And it's not been the Drunk Cast in like 7 years. Oh, Ed in San Antonio show. Oh my God, my mind is completely blanked on this. It's like it's there and then it's gone. So you know what? Fuck it, fail. We're going to call it the Drunk Cast again.
Okay, awesome.